Hey everyone! Before we begin, please subscribe. Today I'm sharing a true story from my real life, something I've never talked about before. Stay till the end because the ending changed everything for me. I am Mabel Turner, and if you've ever seen an old woman speak into her roses as if they can answer back, that might have been me. Hands in the soil, knees aching, heart pretending it doesn't remember. I live in a small house that creaks like it's clearing its throat before it speaks, and most days I keep it quiet on purpose. But I wasn't born into quiet. I came from a loud kind of love, my mother singing while she peeled apples, my father's laugh that seemed to shake flour from the air when he baked. I married young too, young enough to think love was something you could secure like a button on a coat. His name was Calvin. In the beginning, he felt like sunshine that had learned how to speak. He'd show up with daisies tucked into his back pocket and say, "For you, Mabel," like the world had personally appointed him to keep me safe. We rented our first place above a hardware store, and I remember waking up to the smell of sawdust and coffee, Calvin humming as he dressed for work. He used to hold my face in both hands, forehead to forehead, like he was learning my shape. "We'll build something," he'd promise, "a life that doesn't leak." And for a while, we did. We built it out of shared jokes, Sunday drives, and the tiny rituals that make a marriage feel like home. His boots lined up by the door, my hairpins in the kitchen drawer, the way we turned toward each other without thinking when something startled us. Our daughter, Lila, arrived with a furious little cry and the most serious eyes I'd ever seen on a baby. Calvin wept the first time he held her. I watched him rock her near the window, mouth moving as if he was making vows directly to her future. Those were the years I planted everything: marigolds, sweet peas, tomatoes I was absurdly proud of. The garden out back was no bigger than a blanket laid flat, but I treated it like a kingdom. I pressed seeds into the earth and felt the strange relief of doing something that promised tomorrow. Lila grew up learning the names of herbs before she learned long division. She used to follow me outside with her little plastic watering can, solemnly pouring more water onto soil that was already wet. Calvin would stand in the doorway, smiling, and call, "My two girls, making the world prettier." Sometimes I believed him so completely it frightened me, as if happiness could be stolen by being noticed. It's hard to explain how love changes. It doesn't always snap. Sometimes it slowly tightens, like a vine that starts as decoration and ends up around your throat. But in the beginning, it was warm. In the beginning, I laughed freely. In the beginning, I thought the garden was simply a garden, nothing more than refuge, nothing less than joy. I didn't yet understand how good soil can also be a hiding place. It started with small things that were easy to excuse because Calvin's voice stayed gentle even when his meaning shifted. He'd correct me in front of people, softly, smiling. "Mabel means well, she just forgets details." And I'd laugh too because it sounded like affection if you didn't listen closely. He began to ask where I'd been when I came home from the market, not angrily, just with a curious tilt of his head, as if the world was full of traps and he was trying to map them for me. "It's not that I don't trust you," he'd say. "I don't trust other people." He started turning my ordinary choices into questions that needed approval. If I bought a new dress, he'd ask, "Why you think we have money for extras?" If I planned to visit my sister, he'd remind me how tired he'd be after work, how much he needed me home. "You're my calm," he'd say. And that sounded like love until I realized calm was another word for silence. Even then, I didn't call it control. I called it devotion. I told myself I was lucky to be wanted so fiercely. When you're young, you can confuse being held with being owned. Lila was in grade school when Calvin's worry became a constant presence in our rooms. He didn't like her teacher, didn't like the neighbor who waved too much, didn't like the way the mailman said my name. He'd watch from the window like a man guarding a boarder. Sometimes he'd come behind me in the kitchen, wrap his arms around my waist, and I'd tense without meaning to. He'd notice and laugh softly. "You jumpy thing," he'd say, kissing the side of my head. "I'm just loving you." I began to measure my words before I spoke them, the way you measure ingredients when the recipe matters. I learned to praise him at the right times. I learned to mention his sacrifices. I learned to present my wants like requests from a child. And I learned that the garden, for all its openness, was the only place I could breathe without feeling watched. Outside among the leaves, I could be a woman again, not just a wife. I talked to the plants because they didn't argue back. I dug my fingers into the soil and felt something steady beneath the surface. Calvin began to dislike that steadiness. "You spend more time with those weeds than me," he joked once, but his eyes didn't match his smile. He'd stand at the back door and call my name too sharply, like a leash being tugged. The day I realized I was afraid of him wasn't dramatic, it was quiet. I was folding laundry and he walked in and saw a note from my sister, an invitation to a family picnic. He picked it up, read it, and set it down without a word. Then he began folding shirts with me, slow and careful. "We're not going," he said at last. I laughed once instinctively. Why not? His hands paused. He looked at me with a calmness that made my throat tighten. "Because I said so," he replied, like it was a fact, like it didn't need a reason. I waited for anger, for shouting, for something obvious I could point to later and say that was the moment. But he didn't raise his voice. He didn't hit the table. He just smiled, touched my cheek with 2 fingers and said, "Don't make me feel like the enemy in my own home." That sentence, spoken softly, rearranged my world. After that, I began hiding parts of myself, the way you hide letters in a drawer. Not because I wanted to deceive him, but because I needed something that was mine. The garden became my secret language. Every seed I planted felt like a small rebellion. Every bloom felt like proof I could still make something live. I wish I could tell you that I fought back in some heroic way, that I stood up straight and spoke the truth and saved myself with a single brave sentence. But real life is quieter than stories, and bravery doesn't always arrive on time. By the time Leela reached her teenage years, she had learned the tension in our home the way a child learns weather, by watching the sky and memorizing patterns. She became careful, quick to apologize, quick to disappear into her room when Calvin's mood shifted. He didn't need to yell to make us shrink. His disappointment was enough. "You're ungrateful," he'd tell her, as calmly as if he were reading a grocery list. "I provide everything. All I ask is respect." Leela's respect started looking like fear. Mine started looking like compliance. There were moments of sweetness still. Calvin bringing home pastries, Calvin fixing the porch step, Calvin laughing at a silly movie with us. Those moments confused me because they made me question my own discomfort. I'd think, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe this is what marriage is, enduring a man's storms so you can enjoy his sunshine. But the storms became more frequent, and the sunshine began to feel like a trick. The night everything changed arrived without thunder. It was autumn. The garden was mostly finished for the year, the beds covered, the last tomatoes picked. Calvin came home later than usual, coat smelling of cold air and something sharp I couldn't place. Leela was already asleep upstairs. I was at the kitchen table, mending a torn sleeve, when he walked in and stood in front of me without speaking. His face was pale. His eyes looked tired in a way that scared me, because tiredness can make people reckless. "You've been talking," he said. I blinked. "Talking?" He nodded toward the phone on the wall as if it had betrayed him. "To your sister, to anyone who will listen." My mouth went dry. I wanted to say, I'm allowed. I wanted to say, I'm lonely, but I didn't. I said, I just miss my family. Calvin leaned down until his face was close enough that I could smell coffee on his breath. He spoke very softly. Your family is here, he said. Don't confuse yourself. Then he straightened, walked to the counter, and opened a drawer. I saw him pick up a set of keys and something else, a small envelope I recognized because it held papers I had once tried to hide. My hands began to shake. Where did you get that? I asked. Calvin looked almost pleased. I find what I need to find, he said. The words landed like a door locking. I stood up, chair scraping the floor. Give that back, I said, and my voice surprised me, firmer than I thought I still had. Calvin's eyes narrowed. You're turning against me, he replied, and for the first time his calm slipped, not into shouting, into something colder. You think you can leave. The air felt suddenly too thin. I remember thinking, if I don't do something now, this will be my life forever, small and watched and shrinking. I'm going for a walk, I said, grabbing my sweater. It sounded ridiculous, a walk, as if a walk could fix a marriage. Calvin stepped between me and the door. Sit down, he said. I should have obeyed. I knew I should have, but something in me, some part that remembered sunlight, refused. I moved toward the back door instead, toward the garden. Calvin followed, grip closing around my wrist. It didn't bruise, but it owned. Mabel, he said, and his voice was a warning. I pulled away, stumbled outside. The cold air hit my face like water. The garden beds were dark shapes under the moon. Calvin stood in the doorway, shadowed. Come back inside, he called. My heart hammered, not because he was chasing me, but because he didn't have to. The whole house felt like his hands. I walked toward the far corner of the yard where the fence met the old service path behind our neighborhood. That path led toward the creek and the road beyond. I had walked it 100 times in daylight with Leela. That night, it looked like the only exit I'd ever have. Calvin called again, louder, and then silence. The kind of silence that feels like someone making a decision. I waited, breath visible in the air, listening for his steps. Instead, I heard the back door close, then nothing. I stood there, trembling, the garden around me holding its breath. I didn't know it yet, but that was the night my life split into before and after. The next morning, Calvin was gone. Not gone like a man who leaves a note and slams a door. Gone like a coat missing from its hook, a toothbrush absent from the cup, a space in the bed that was suddenly too wide. I told myself he had gone out early, cooled off, decided to be kind again. I made coffee and waited. I packed Lila's lunch and waited. I watched the clock like it could explain something. But by noon, the quiet had turned heavy. By evening, it had turned into dread. I called his workplace. They said he hadn't shown up. I called his friend from the hardware store below our old apartment building. No answer. My hands shook so badly I dropped the phone once. Lila stood in the doorway, backpack still on, eyes wide. "Where's Dad?" she asked. I opened my mouth and realized I didn't have a safe answer. I said the only thing I could. I don't know. When the police arrived, their questions felt like stones being placed one by one on my chest. When did you last see him? Was there an argument? Any history of him leaving? Any signs of depression? I kept my voice even. I told them he was upset the night before. I said we argued, but nothing serious. I didn't tell them about his grip on my wrist. I didn't tell them about the envelope. I didn't tell them the truth that lived between my ribs, that I had been planning in small, secret ways to get away. Because if I said that, the question would come next, why didn't you leave sooner? And I already hated myself for the years I stayed. The search lasted weeks. Volunteers walked the creek. Dogs sniffed along the service path. They found nothing but old cans and broken glass and the usual debris of a world that moves on. People began to whisper. Some whispered that Calvin had abandoned us. Some whispered that he'd fallen into the creek and been carried away. Some whispered that I knew more than I said. I listened to all of it from behind my polite face, nodding, thanking them for concern, offering coffee I couldn't taste. At night, I lay awake listening for footsteps that never came. The strangest part was the relief that arrived alongside fear. I hated myself for it. I would sit on the edge of the bed and think, he can't control me if he's not here. Then immediately, how can you think that? He might be dead. He might be hurt. And my guilt would rise like floodwater. The official report eventually settled on 2 possibilities: accident or voluntary disappearance. The words sounded neat on paper. In my body, they were knives. Lila grew quiet in a new way, not just cautious, hollow. She stopped asking where her father was and started watching me instead, as if my face held the answer she didn't trust herself to ask. I tried to give her normal life: school, dinner, chores, birthdays. I tried to be both parents without admitting I had never been fully myself as one. But the house felt haunted by what wasn't said. Neighbors brought casseroles and sympathy, then moved on to their own lives. I stayed behind with the unanswered. Every night I walked into the garden and stared at the far fence, the service path beyond it. It didn't feel like an exit anymore. It felt like a witness. Sometimes I imagined Calvin out there, watching, waiting. Sometimes I imagined him in the creek, face pale under the water. And sometimes, this is the part I don't like to admit, I imagined him free somewhere, starting over, leaving us behind like an old coat. Each version hurt. Each version made me feel responsible, because I knew we had argued. I knew I had run. I knew I had wanted out. I didn't push him. I didn't harm him. But guilt is not always logical. Guilt is a creature that feeds on silence. I fed it for decades. I fed it every time someone said, "You must have been so close," and I nodded. I fed it every time Lila looked at me with a question she couldn't form. I fed it with my hands in the soil, digging holes and filling them, burying bulbs like tiny truths I hoped would stay hidden until they were safe enough to bloom. Time does what it always does. It moves forward even when you don't feel ready. I raised Lila in a house that tried to act normal while holding a secret ache in every corner. I became the kind of mother who smiled too much and apologized too quickly. I volunteered at school. I baked for fundraisers. I kept our yard tidy because a tidy yard can convince people nothing ugly lives inside. But Lila grew up with a question that never stopped pressing against her throat. She did well in school, she was polite, she never caused trouble, and that was how I knew she was hurting, because children who are truly okay don't become perfect. Perfect is a survival trick. When she was 16, she asked me finally, directly. We were in the garden. I was pruning dead leaves from the roses, and she stood behind me, hands in her hoodie pockets. "What happened that night?" she said. The shears paused midair. My heart thudded hard enough to hurt. "Which night?" I asked foolishly. "Don't," she replied, voice flat. "The night Dad vanished." I swallowed. The air smelled of earth and late summer heat. I could have told her then. I could have said, "He scared me. He was changing. I didn't know how to leave." I could have offered her the truth like a lantern, but I was still afraid. Not of Calvin exactly, but of what the truth would do. I was afraid she'd hate him. I was afraid she'd hate me for staying. And most of all, I was afraid that speaking it out loud would make me responsible in a way I could never escape. So I did what I had trained myself to do. I softened it. I said, "We argued. He was upset. I went out. In the morning, he was gone." Lila stared at me as if I had slapped her. "That's it?" she whispered. Her eyes shined with something sharp. "That's all you have?" I opened my mouth, but my words were stones. She shook her head slowly. "You're hiding something," she said. "I've always known." "I'm not," I lied, because I didn't have the courage to call it anything else. "I'm trying to protect you." Lila laughed once, bitter. "Protect me from what? The truth?" She stepped back, eyes darting to the dark soil, the beds I tended like sacred ground. "Is he out there?" she blurted, and the question pierced me in a way I still feel. Did you do something? Did he do something? Did you let him? No, I snapped too loudly. A bird startled from the fence. Lila flinched. My own voice frightened me. I lowered it. No, honey, I said. Nothing like that. She stared at me, breathing hard. Then her shoulders dropped, not with relief, but with defeat. Then why won't you tell me? She asked, smaller now, like the little girl who used to water soil already wet. I had no answer that didn't expose my shame. I reached for her, but she stepped away. That was the first real distance between us, physical, emotional, permanent. After that, she began to pull away in quiet increments, spending more time at friends' houses, staying late after school, choosing a college far enough that weekend visits would be inconvenient. When she left for university, she hugged me stiffly at the car. "Call me," I said. She nodded without meeting my eyes. "Sure," she replied, and I knew she wouldn't. And she didn't. Not often, just enough to keep the thread from fully snapping. Holidays became short, tense visits. She'd ask about my health, the weather, the garden. She never asked about Calvin again, but the question lived in the space between us, unspoken and poisonous. Then came years when she didn't come home at all. I heard from her through postcards, then texts, then silence. People told me kids do that, as if distance was normal, but I knew this distance had a name, unanswered. I watched my daughter become a stranger while I stayed loyal to a secret that only punished me. I spent more time in the garden because plants didn't resent me for what I couldn't say. I tended the soil like penance. I grew things that required patience. I convinced myself that if I kept everything alive out there, maybe I could make what I let die inside my home. But every spring, when new shoots pushed up through the dirt, I felt the same painful thought. Truth always rises, even when you bury it carefully. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the past finally returned with a voice. I remember because Tuesdays had become my safest day. No church committees, no family expectations, just quiet routines and the comfort of predictable hours. I was in the kitchen, peeling potatoes, when the phone rang. I almost let it go to voicemail. Most calls now were pharmacy reminders or distant acquaintances checking in out of obligation. But something in the ring felt different. Urgent, insistent, like a hand knocking on a door you thought no one knew about. I wiped my hands and answered. "Mrs. Turner?" a man asked. His voice was professional, careful. "This is Detective Haraway with the county office." My knees went weak so suddenly I had to grip the counter. "Detective?" I repeated. "Yes, ma'am. I'm calling about Calvin Turner." The name sounded like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples moved through my body. I hadn't said Calvin's name out loud in years. I kept it tucked behind my teeth where it couldn't do damage. "What?" I began, but my throat tightened. "We've reopened some old missing persons files," he said. "A new review, updated records, and something came up." My hand trembled so hard the phone vibrated against my ear. "Something?" I whispered. "We found a piece of evidence that was misfiled," he continued, "and we also received a letter addressed to you. It was in an estate box from a recently deceased attorney." I closed my eyes. The room tilted. "A letter?" I echoed, as if repeating it could make it less real. "Yes," he said. "It's dated decades ago. There's also mention of a name you may recognize." He paused, as if weighing how much a heart can handle. "Your daughter, Lila Turner." My stomach dropped. "Has something happened to Lila?" I asked, voice sharp with sudden fear. "No, ma'am," he replied quickly. "She's fine, as far as we know, but the letter references her. And there's an indication that Calvin Turner may not have died when we assumed." The words hit like cold water. For years, I had lived with two possibilities, accident or abandonment. Now a third possibility stood up between them, enormous and impossible. Alive. My mind began to race through memories like a frantic animal. Calvin's face in the doorway, the back door closing, the silence that felt like a decision. "What does the letter say?" I asked, barely breathing. "I'd prefer to discuss it in person," the detective said, and I hated him for it, hated the carefulness that made me wait. "We can bring it to you, or you can come in." My hands were slick with sweat. I looked toward the back window where the garden waited. The soil beds were dark, tidy, innocent. "Bring it," I managed. "Please." After I hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long time, staring at the potatoes as if they had betrayed me. My heart pounded with old fear, but beneath it was something worse: hope. Hope is dangerous when you've trained yourself to survive without it. I thought of Lila, where she was now, who she had become. Would she answer if I called? Would she even care? I thought of Calvin, alive somewhere, possibly, living years I didn't get, leaving me with a burden I carried alone. Anger rose, then guilt, then confusion, until I couldn't tell which feeling was which. I walked outside, barefoot in my house shoes, and stood in the garden. The air smelled of damp earth. I knelt and pressed my palm flat against the soil, as if I could steady myself against it. "If you know," I whispered to the ground, "you have to tell me." The soil, of course, stayed silent. It always had. But that day, I realized the silence was no longer safe. It was about to crack open, and whatever was inside, truth, shame, or misunderstanding, was finally going to breathe. Detective Haraway arrived 2 days later in a plain car that looked like it belonged to no one. He was younger than I expected, with tired eyes that suggested he spent his life reading other people's tragedies. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had once mended a sleeve while my marriage quietly broke. He placed a thin envelope on the wood as if it might bite. "Before I show you this," he said, "I need to ask, did Calvin ever talk about leaving?" I let out a shaky laugh that held no humor. "He talked about everything like it was mine to obey," I replied. The detective nodded slowly, not pushing. "Did he have enemies?" "No," I said, "just fears." My voice was small. "And pride." He slid the envelope toward me. My fingers hovered above the edge for a moment, trembling. I half expected Calvin's hand to reach out from the past and stop me. Instead, there was only the scratch of paper under my fingertips. I opened it carefully, like you open a wound. The letter was dated 3 months after Calvin disappeared. 3 months while I had been begging the universe for a sign. 3 months while Lila had been watching me, waiting. The handwriting was Calvin's, tight, controlled, as if the letters themselves were holding their breath. It began with my name, Mabel. Just that. No my love, no softness. I read it once, then again because my mind refused to accept it. Calvin wrote that he had left for the sake of order. He wrote that I had shamed him by speaking to my family, by questioning him. He wrote that he had gone away to start fresh, and that I was not to look for him. Then came the line that made my stomach twist. He wrote that if I ever told Lila the truth, if I ever poisoned him against him, he would return and set things right. The threat was wrapped in calm words like all his threats had been. I felt old fear rise so fast I tasted metal. The detective watched my face. "There's more," he said gently. My eyes moved down the page. Calvin included a note about money, how he had left some in a hidden place, how it should be enough if I behaved. I blinked hard, and my tears fell on the paper like sudden rain. I had lived years thinking I failed to protect myself. Now I saw that Calvin had designed my silence on purpose. He had disappeared, but he had still controlled me, through fear, through threat, through the invisible hand of what might happen if I spoke. I looked up at the detective, voice trembling. "I never got this," I whispered. "I swear I would have—" "We believe you," he said, and his certainty made me sob harder because I hadn't believed myself in a long time. The letter was misfiled, he continued. It ended up in a box connected to a different case. We only found it because an attorney's estate was donated and cataloged. My hands shook as I read the last lines. Calvin wrote one more thing, something that made my breath stop. He mentioned a man's name, Elias Grant. He wrote, "Elias will take care of the details. Don't involve the police. Don't involve anyone. This is between us." I stared at the name until the letters blurred. "Do you know who Elias Grant is?" the detective asked. I shook my head slowly, but somewhere in my memory, a shadow moved. A man who had once fixed a fence for Calvin, a friend of a friend who had stood too close at a neighborhood barbecue. I couldn't place him clearly, and that frightened me. The detective sighed. "We tracked that name," he said. "Elias Grant died last year, but his records suggest he had contact with Calvin around the time of the disappearance." My stomach churned. "So Calvin left?" I said, the words feeling unreal. "He abandoned us?" The detective hesitated. "We can't confirm everything yet, but there's something else." He pulled out another sheet. There was a bank account opened under a different name. It received deposits from Calvin's workplace benefits years later, meaning someone kept his information active. I stared, heart pounding. "Someone helped him," I whispered. The detective nodded. "Possibly." And he added, "This is why I mentioned your daughter. Lila requested information about her father 2 years ago. She filed a formal inquiry." My throat tightened. Lila had been searching, alone, without me. The weight of that knowledge pressed down until I could barely breathe. The detective stood, gathering his papers. "We're going to continue," he said, "but I need you to consider something, Mrs. Turner. Your silence may have been fear, but it also kept you trapped." When he left, I sat at the table with Calvin's letter in my lap, feeling as if I had been handed proof that my guilt had been misdirected for decades. The truth was that I did not cause his disappearance. The truth was that he had planned my punishment. And the most painful part was realizing I had helped him by obeying the one rule he left behind: don't speak. Outside, my garden waited, orderly, quiet, faithful. For the first time, it didn't feel like a refuge. It felt like a grave I had tended with love. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with the letter spread open on the coffee table like a verdict. Every tick of the clock felt like another year of my life falling away. I kept thinking of Lila filing an inquiry, of her doing the brave thing I never did, asking, insisting, refusing to be satisfied with soft answers. I wondered how different her life might have been if I had spoken sooner. I wondered how different my life might have been. In the morning, I did something I had not done in decades. I opened drawers I didn't need to open, lifted old boxes, searched the house like it held secrets I had forgotten. I found photographs of Calvin smiling with Lila on his shoulders. I found a receipt from the year he vanished. I found the sweater I had worn that night, still folded, still smelling faintly of mothballs and memory. And then, in the back of a closet, I found something I had buried without soil, a small tin I used to keep seeds in. Inside were folded documents, my own attempts long ago to plan an exit, a list of shelters I had copied from a pamphlet, a note with my sister's address, a few bills I had saved. I stared at those papers with disbelief because I had forgotten how close I came to saving myself. I had lived so long believing I was weak that I had erased evidence of my own courage. Later that day, Detective Haraway called again. "We found something," he said. My chest tightened. "What?" "A report from the creek search," he said. "It mentions footprints that were dismissed at the time, multiple sets. One set matched Calvin's shoe size, another didn't." I sat down hard. "So someone was with him," I whispered. "Possibly," he replied. "Also, this is important. There's a witness statement from a gas station several miles away. The clerk reported seeing a man resembling Calvin late that night, speaking with another man. The statement was never followed up properly." I closed my eyes. The picture formed in my mind with terrible clarity. Calvin leaving the house, not to vanish into the creek, but to meet someone, to disappear in a way that looked accidental, to make his exit a story that would trap me forever. "Why are you telling me all this now?" I asked, voice shaking. "Because," the detective said softly, "we may be able to locate where he went, and because if there's a chance he's alive, your testimony matters." The words made my mouth go dry. "Testimony," I repeated, as if it belonged to someone else. "Mabel," he said, and hearing my name from a stranger sounded strangely kind. "What was Calvin like at home?" I stared at my hands. I saw the tremor in them. I saw the years. "He was not violent," I said slowly, choosing each word like it could explode. "But he was dangerous in other ways. He made you doubt your own mind. He made love feel like a debt." There was a pause on the line. "Thank you," the detective said softly. "That helps." When I hung up, I walked into the garden and began to dig, not wildly, not desperately, but with steady intention. I told myself I was preparing a new bed for spring, but my hands had another purpose, one I didn't fully admit until later. I wanted to feel the earth open, because for decades I had been the closed one. I dug and lifted soil, turning it over, exposing old roots and stones. The work made my muscles ache, and the ache felt honest. As I worked, memories surfaced, Calvin's calm threats, my careful smiles, Lila's defeated eyes. I realized something that unsettled me. My guilt wasn't only about Calvin's disappearance, it was about my own disappearance, how I had slowly erased myself to survive. That night, I looked up Lila's number from an old contact list. My finger hovered over the call button for a long time. I almost stopped. Silence is a habit, and habits feel like safety, but the letter had already broken the spell. I pressed call. It rang once, twice, then her voice answered, wary and distant. "Hello?" My throat closed. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Then, with all the trembling honesty I had avoided for years, I said, "Lila, it's me. I need to tell you the truth, all of it." There was a long pause, so long I thought she'd hang up. Then she whispered, "Mom?" and her voice cracked like a door finally opening. Chapter 9. The truth I feared didn't destroy us, it freed us. Lila came 3 days later. She drove up in a car I didn't recognize, stepped out wearing a coat too thin for the season, and for a moment I saw the teenage girl she had been, the same guarded posture, the same eyes scanning for danger. But there was something else too, strength. She had built herself without me, and that hurt more than I expected. We stood on the porch looking at each other like strangers who shared a bloodline. Then she walked forward and hugged me, briefly but tightly, as if she was testing whether I was real. Inside, we sat at the kitchen table. I made tea I didn't drink. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Lila watched me, expression unreadable. "So," she said finally, voice controlled, "what is it you couldn't tell me for 20 years? The shame rose like heat in my face. I reached for the letter and slid it across. She read it slowly. As she read, her jaw tightened. Her eyes flicked up at mine at certain lines, especially at the threat. When she finished, she placed the paper down with care, as if it were fragile and poisonous. "So he wrote this," she said flatly. I nodded. "I never saw it. They only found it now." Lila's hands curled into fists. "So he left on purpose," she said, and the sentence sounded like she was naming a storm. "Yes," I replied, "and he made sure I stayed afraid." Lila stared at the table. Her breathing was shallow. I reached out but didn't touch her. "I should have told you everything," I said. "I should have named what he was doing. I should have—" "Why didn't you?" she interrupted, and the pain in her voice made my eyes burn. I swallowed. "Because I thought silence was protection," I admitted. Because I was ashamed, because I kept thinking if I stayed calm, if I stayed good, he wouldn't come back angry. Lila let out a sharp exhale, half laugh, half sob. "Do you know what your silence did to me?" she asked. I nodded, tears spilling. "It made you think you were crazy," she said. "It made you think you imagined it," I finished, voice breaking. "It made you think you couldn't trust your own questions." She stared at me, tears gathering in her eyes now too. "I spent years," she whispered, "wondering if you did something. I hated myself for thinking it, but I couldn't understand why you never fought for answers." The sentence struck deep because it named the truth. I hadn't fought, I had endured, and endurance without truth becomes a cage. "I'm sorry," I said, and the words felt too small for the damage. "I'm sorry I left you alone with that." Lila's face twisted. She pressed her palms to her eyes, and when she lowered them, she looked exhausted. "I filed that inquiry because I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed proof, anything. I needed to know whether he was dead or whether he chose to disappear." I nodded. "And you were right. You were brave." Lila shook her head. "No," she said quietly. "I was desperate." Then she looked at the window, at the garden beyond it. "You always hid out there," she murmured. "I used to think you loved those plants, man, you loved me." The sentence hit like a slap. "No," I whispered. "I loved you so much, it terrified me." Lila turned back, eyes wet. "Then why didn't you let me in?" she asked. I took a deep breath, feeling years of fear pressing against my lungs. "Because I thought if you knew the truth, you'd hate him, and I thought if you hated him, you'd blame me for staying, and I didn't know how to survive your disappointment." Lila's gaze softened almost painfully. "Mom," she said, voice shaking, "I already blamed you, not for staying, for pretending nothing was wrong." Tears ran down my face. We sat in that truth for a long time. Then Lila reached across the table and took my trembling hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. "Tell me everything," she said. "Not the softened version, the real one." And I did. I told her about the grip on my wrist, the calm threats, the way love became a ledger where I was always in debt. I told her about the night he vanished, the way the silence felt like a decision. I told her about the relief I hated myself for feeling. Lila listened without interrupting, tears falling quietly. When she finished, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "You didn't make him disappear." The words cracked something open inside me. I had needed to hear them more than I knew. "I thought I did. I punished myself for decades." Lila shook her head. "He punished you, and you helped him because you thought silence was love." Her honesty was painful, but it was also a gift, because for the first time, the story between us wasn't built on gaps. It was built on truth. The investigation didn't end with a dramatic reunion or courtroom scene. Life rarely gives us neat endings. What it gave me was something quieter and somehow more miraculous: understanding. Detective Haraway called a month after Lila's visit to tell me they traced Calvin's altered records to a town 2 states away. They found documents, rental agreements, employment forms, small paper footprints of a man living under another name, but they did not find Calvin himself. The detective's voice was gentle when he told me what they had concluded. Calvin likely lived many years after he left us, supported at times by people who helped him vanish, and died without ever returning. There was no proof of an accident, there was proof of a choice. When I hung up, I sat on my porch for a long time watching the winter light move across my garden beds. I expected rage, I expected devastation, and I did feel grief, sharp, bitter grief for the life he stole and the fear he planted. But beneath the grief was something new. My guilt loosened. Not because what happened didn't matter, but because I finally understood it clearly. I had been living as if I owed Calvin penance for his disappearance. In truth, he had left a weapon behind, and I had carried it inside myself. The twist, the cruel irony, was that I spent decades punishing myself for something I did not do. I misunderstood my role in the story. I thought I was responsible for his vanishing, when what I was truly responsible for, what I could have changed, was the silence that followed. And even that, I began to understand, was not simple weakness. It was survival. It was a frightened young woman doing the best she could with the tools she had. Leela began visiting more after that, not constantly, not in some movie-perfect way, but steadily, like a plant sending up shoots after a hard winter. We talked about her life. I learned she had children of her own, my grandchildren, who knew me only as the quiet grandmother with the garden. The first time my granddaughter ran into my yard and laughed at the muddy smell of my hands, I felt something inside me soften. I wasn't just a woman trapped in an old story anymore. I was part of a new one. One afternoon, Leela and I planted together. We chose bulbs, daffodils, because they come back no matter how harsh the season has been. As we pressed them into the soil, Leela said, "Do you ever wish you'd done it differently?" I paused, hands covered in earth. "Yes," I admitted, "every day." Then I looked at her. "But I also know this. If I keep living in the wish, I'll miss what I still have." Leela nodded, eyes shining. "I'm here," she said. "I'm not gone." I swallowed hard. "I know," I whispered, "and I'm finally here too." That spring, when the first green tips appeared in the garden beds, I cried, not because I was sad, but because I felt something I hadn't felt in years: permission. Permission to be angry without shame, permission to grieve without self-blame, permission to speak. I started telling the truth in small ways, telling friends I had lived in fear, telling my doctor I struggled with sleep, telling my grandchildren stories that didn't pretend life is always gentle. And the more I spoke, the lighter my chest became. I realized silence had been my refuge, but it had also been my prison. It kept me safe from conflict, but it also kept me trapped with ghosts. The garden taught me something I had refused to learn. Buried things don't disappear. They either rot into poison or they break the surface in their own time. Now, when I kneel in the soil, I don't feel like I'm hiding anymore. I feel like I'm tending. I'm tending to what was broken. I'm tending to what survived. I'm tending to truth. And here is the life lesson I leave you with, the one I learned too late, but still in time to matter. Silence may feel like protection, but it can become a slow kind of self-punishment. Truth spoken gently is not destruction, it is release. Forgiveness is not forgetting what hurt you, it is refusing to carry it alone. And the cost of hiding pain for too long is that it grows roots in you until you finally speak and let yourself bloom again. Thank you for listening to my story and for learning the lesson it carries. If this story touched you and you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel and stay connected for more true stories based on real life experiences.